listening to the Badass is the New Black podcast. I'm Krissy Chin, your host, here to teach you how to build an online business that you love and in a way that allows you to work a little bit less so you can enjoy a whole lot more. My hope is that you've showed up to today's episode ready to learn something new and will be inspired to take imperfect action in your business right away. I won't make you wait any longer. Let's dive in. Y'all, I am so excited to have Adria DeCorte here. Adria is a message clarity coach and a copywriter. She's a TEDx speaker, host of the Unforgettable Podcast, and creator of the 5 Messenger Archetypes. She loves vlogging and adventuring in her self-converted camper van with her guy and her Doberman Lexi. Now, her specialty, her superpower is helping sensitive and introverted leaders tap into the message that moves them and then clearly and courageously share it so that they can call in their people and their next level of impact without having to change who they are. And so we're going to talk about that today. And I'm really excited because it is really important for your business to have a clear message. Like, it's one of the most important things, I think. And I'm sure you
and in this conversation, yeah. And in this idea of streamlining and making everything work, roll well so that you don't have to do a lot of extra work, your message being clear, your messaging being so clear and targeted and helping people self-select and know that you're talking to them and all these things that we can definitely talk more about, really leverages any work that you're doing in your marketing or in your conversations or anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to get to those juicy details, but I want to hear a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are. So we're not going to spend the whole episode on this, but just a little bit so people can get to know you a little bit, find out your background, and how you got to what you're doing today.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm such a believer of the evolution of us as business owners, as personal brands, as like we're humans and that all these little pieces along our journey are a big part of what we bring to the table today. So I am definitely someone who's had a lot of evolution and kind of twists and turns in terms of the work I'm doing in the world and the people I'm working with. If you go way far back, I originally got a degree in architecture, and I was working in the architecture world for a while. And that still brings in like the lens of like user experience. How does someone move through a space? How does your messaging make people feel? And after a while, I realized that wasn't quite the right fit for me. I started getting really passionate about plants, about plant ecology, about nature, about growing things, and ended up going and getting my master's in plant ecology. I live in Las Vegas. I live in the Mojave Desert. And so basically became like a plant nerd, working for the government in natural resources, managing for the state, like the southern region of Nevada, in like natural conservation projects. And that was really beautiful. It gave me this opportunity, since I was 8 hours drive away from my boss. I didn't have a lot of oversight. I had a lot of entrepreneurialness within that position, a lot of ability to look at, okay, what are the things that really matter to me? Like, what are the projects I want to focus on? Being the face of the agency in my area. And it was during that time that I was doing all of that. And that all felt very meaningful in terms of the work I was doing. But there were different elements, like one being, in the government, things happened really slow. I wanted to make change happen faster. And I also started getting really interested in the online space. And I've always been a writer. And I started reading different people's blogs and like things people were creating and how they were showing up as thought leaders and personal brands online. I started listening to podcasts as I was, going up to the mountains and putting like bark beetle traps on trees. I was like listening to podcasts on online business, and it got to a point where, I started my own business. It started out kind of like a content marketing blog based online business. And I was doing that kind of on the side, and got to the point that I was so much more passionate about that than I was about my, the career that I had built, that I left that career. I went full-time into my business way too early in terms of making money. But somehow everything has always worked out. And that was 9 years ago. Oh my gosh. Geez. And even then, like, there's been so much evolution within business. Where I started out, I was in the wellness space. I started out because, like I said, is more of like a blog-based business. And then I shifted into a little bit more of a coaching style where I was supporting business owners. And my first podcast was called Feed Your Hustle. And my TEDx talk was how food fuels hustle. And it was around, how do we manage energy for the things we want to do in our lives, for the things that really matter to us, where we want to make our impact in the world. And it was doing that and doing my TEDx talk and like preparing it and figuring out, okay, what is my message? Like, what is it that I'm here to share, that I want to, like, I know I want to be on this platform and I want to speak and I want to share, but like, what is it that I really have to say? It was developing that I think I really came to the realization of how what really mattered most to me was the messaging part of things, was like being the messenger, was how do people show up as leaders with their voice and their brand, and how do they cultivate such a clear brand and voice that they get known for that, and that they're a thought leader, and how they tie that back to their business so that they're getting paid to do this work, and so they can keep doing it. And so that became kind of like after my TED talk, which I think probably was maybe 6 years ago now, that became my shift. Like, I pivoted in business in terms of how I was supporting people, which felt scary. I think like often those pivots can feel really scary, and there's imposter syndrome that comes up. And but I shifted in this direction because it really felt like the work I was made for, like merging my user experience background and my my ability, like, to, like, I'm a really strong editor in terms of being able to see all the pieces and see where all the threads connect together, and being able to, like, my curiosity with, like, some of my strengths are being able to ask the right question, ask the question that pulls things to the surface. And then I can see all the parts. And so when I'm working with a client when I'm working with a copywriting client, I can put together kind of the questions I want to ask that I know will kind of bring the core of who they are, what they stand for, who their people are to the surface, and then ask follow-up questions that kind of like go deeper. And when I'm leading people in my masterminds, it's like I bring those to the table too, of, if this is a leader and a messenger, like, how do I help pull to the surface what they're really here to say, and how do they shape that? And so I share all this because it's so interesting. Like, all these parts of our journey become, a part of what makes us so uniquely able to support our people now, whether that's, in a product, whether that's in a service, whatever that is. But yeah, like so since I shifted in this direction, I think that I've just been continually going deeper in, who are the people I'm here to serve? How do I be aligned with that? And what does that look like in my work, so that I'm feeling filled up and I'm not like drained by it. Like, and that's been all the nuances I've worked on for the last several years.
Yeah. And I love in your story, and I didn't know your story before, so thank you so much for sharing it. Not only for me, because I'm like, I get so much goodness out of this, but I know the audience will too. And what I picked up on hearing your story is that you were willing to explore more. Right. And so I think a lot of people do get held up on that fear of like, oh, the next thing, like, well, you went to school for this, and then you went back to school for this, and now transitioning out, like, what about all that school you did for it and shifting into something else? But you had the courage to explore something else, which allowed you to find something that feels so aligned and lights you up and serves in a way that you want to serve. And you wouldn't have gotten to this place had you not been open and willing to not only explore, but like take on new challenges. Like, how scary was it to do a TEDx?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think that if there's a theme in my journey, it's been like getting uncomfortable because there's like a pull, it's like, I think I've noticed that that the more I can kind of tune in and see, is something out of alignment? Does something feel like it's really hard, or it's draining, or this isn't quite right and I need to shift it? Or is there something I'm stepping into? And I think, the TEDx was one of those things of like, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't think, I grew up painfully shy. My first marriage, I didn't want to have a wedding. I didn't want to walk down the aisle because I was scared of everyone looking at me. So doing a TEDx was like a act of courage, definitely. And I think that, I've had a lot of people who've gone through my messenger masterminds who have then gone and applied for TEDx's, because I think that there's this shift we can have of thinking that a thought leader is someone else, versus like that can be us, that if we have something that we're passionate about and we care about and we have a message we're here to share, like that there's no place to get to before we can share that.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of that. I totally just muted myself because my kids are yelling out there. This is the life of 2021 and pandemic.
Yes.
Like, have to text the nanny, get them away from the door. So I like muted myself so you couldn't hear them yelling no in the background. No, I love all of that. And I love your journey and like just the messaging. I just love all of it. I love all it. And so I'm so excited to dive into more and like hear that's what you've created this expertness. That's probably not even really a word, but we're making it up on, your message. So before we get into that, because we've kind of touched on your strengths, and I love how you talked about the architecture and how it kind of still plays this role in what you're doing with this journey and this, how you move people through your space, in your business. And I talk about that a lot of, what is the journey? If we've got coaches that are listening or people that have a product, you move your clients through this journey. What is that journey? So I love how you're tying in your knowledge of architecture and space and using it for your business. Like, why not use the things that we know and are good at to like bring that fresh perspective into what we're doing now. So I thought that was really cool that you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Before we dive into talking more about messaging and helping our listeners get more clarity on their messaging, I'm all about, and this is something that I've shifted a little bit more into, and I've always focused on it, but I've just gotten so much more clarity in my message and how I help people. So now, guys, from here on out, you're going to be hearing on the podcast me saying this in my messaging more and more about helping people be really intentional with how they're working to decrease their work hours and increase their ability to have more time, their ability to earn more. And so I really want to talk about just something in your business that has allowed you, something you've implemented, a tool you found. It can be whatever it is that's just helping you work more efficiently, or maybe got something off of your plate that you hated doing that you now have more space to do what you love.
Okay. So what is coming to me that I feel like I want to share might be a little bit different than like a tech tool or something that maybe someone would think about in this realm, but it's been really important for me and shifted things a lot. And that is, honestly, my podcast, like having a database of core content, because I have people all the time who are reaching out, who are becoming clients, who found my podcast and then binged on episodes, like went down the rabbit hole, and felt like they knew me, and then reached out, and they're episodes that I created like 2 years ago. And so like, I think of my podcast as like timeless marketing, because I'm someone who, I'm not, like, the last year or so, I really haven't been on social media as much as maybe I have been before in my business. I'm an introvert. I'm, a little bit quieter about things. And so my podcast, having that platform, I feel like it creates this sense of intimacy and the sense of like people creating a connection and being able to, like I said, go back and look at other past episodes and then come to me. It feels like it calls in my people without, like, again, I think about that as any like database of content that someone can find you through, like builds that that relationship before they even get to you.
Mm-hmm. Full disclosure, you guys, I found Adria through her podcast. That is
there
exactly
you go.
how. I don't even remember. I think I was searching on podcasts, messaging, something having to do with your message and your brand and getting clarity on messaging, and stumbled upon your podcast and binged listen. I went for a walk. I remember clear as day. I was the first time I had gotten out of my house in a long time. The weather was nice and I was walking by myself without children. You guys, that's a huge, feat in of itself. So I had this alone time and I just started listening to your podcast. And I remember even sending you a message after, and I was like, by the way, I just love your voice. It was so like calming and soothing. And it just took me into this space. And I just binge listened to your podcast. And I was like, I have to have her on the podcast. And so that was exactly, I love that that's what you shared. That's exactly how I found you. And so efficient. I found you, you're coming on the podcast because I listen to your podcast. You're going to be exposed to my audience. My audience is going to go listen to you now. And you did all that with just recording that one time. Well, not one time, but multiple times, but that once, and having it live forever. So how efficient is that? Right? To be able to just have content out there, and then people can find you a year, 2 years later on something you created so long ago. So that is, I love that example. Such an awesome example. And I'm glad that it's working out for you, that you're enjoying the podcast and it's serving you in this way to help you grow your business. So awesome.
And I think that's also another, I guess, nod to clear messaging and like being clear on what are the things you stand for? Who are your people? Who are you speaking to? What do they need to hear from you? Because I think all those things make it really a clear line. Then if someone does want to, be like, hey, come on my show, or be like, hey, I need your support. They're really clear about what you do. And they're really clear about what you stand for, or what, who they can refer you to, or, whatever that is. Like it creates a lot of, leveraging of your work and your time too.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you a tip that you give to help people get more clarity in what their message is going to be. And then I can share a little story of how I just got more clarity on my messaging. But if someone came to you and said, I'm kind of all over the place, I feel like I do the same thing as everyone else, how do I find out what my message is? What would you tell them?
So first of all, I think of so this bubble of messaging is like this big category of everything you say and all the conversations you have and everything, like in the online space, or you as a leader, even if you don't think of yourself as a leader, you are. and so within that, we have what I think of as kind of your core message. So if you did a TED Talk, what would it be on? What is the one thing that you stand for, that you're putting your stake in the ground for? And then we have, the work you do, and how do you message that? How do you talk about your work? How do you, if you were to tell the narrative of your clients and how you're, and what they're going through, like that's like the category of like your core message, the thing you show up for. And then how you're doing that and getting paid for it is like this other category. And so when people are unclear, it's often, it might be both of these categories, it might be one of them. And so first it's looking at like getting clear on what would your TED Talk be? Like if you were, and there might be a lot of different things. And often I'll have someone do an opinion brain dump, where you set a timer for a minute and then you just get out a piece of paper and you write down all the things you have strong opinions about, that you care about, that you feel fired up about in your industry. And then you look afterwards at all those things and you circle, like, what is the thing in there that you like, you just feel so much emotion around, you care so much about. And that's a great place to start. and like to refine down and be like, okay, this is the beginnings of my core message. Now, how can I, hone this and clarify this? And then on the other side, in terms of your message and clarity, if you're like, okay, I feel like I'm the same as everyone else, like there's a million other people in the sea online who do the same work as me. How do I kind of stand out? Then that work is that your message, your core message, is such a huge part of that, for one. And then like who you are, like this whole me talking about my story, sharing my story with everyone, is like all those pieces of my story are things I uniquely bring to the table. So the user experience lens from my architecture background is one of those things. Or, the having been a TEDx speaker and kind of understanding how you frame something that is painting the picture of like your work in the world, and like all these elements, like what are those things that you bring to the table that like coupled with your message start to create this like more specific, more targeted like way of talking about you and the narrative of your work, and then like your people. So if you were to close your eyes and visualize your people and visualize them waking up in the morning and like what thoughts are going through their head, and as they go about their day, how is that affecting them? What are they worried about falling asleep at night? How does this show up in their relationships with their families, with their coworkers, with their partner? Like starting to shape that narrative on a much deeper level than just like demographics, like being able to convey that in how you're sharing when you talk about what you do, and have that really grounded language, that's visual language. Like those are all the starting places that then when we start to like get that all together on paper and look at it, we start to see a lot more concrete details that are specific, that are clear, that start to show what our leadership is, or what we can get known for, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What someone can grab onto and know about us.
Yeah, absolutely. And over time, it can evolve, right? We're always evolving. Maybe you start with one message, and through your experiences, you realize that, gosh, actually my message is this over here. Or now that this has happened in my life, I want my message to shift this way. And so not being afraid of putting yourself out there, even if you feel like your message isn't super clear, because you will find clarity as you get it out. Right? Do you experience that?
Agree.
Okay. I was wondering if you experienced that with your people.
I absolutely, with my people and with myself, I do what I call a clarity reset at least once a year, where, things evolve. I evolve as a human. I'm, as I imagine people who are listening to this, I'm very self-development oriented. I'm always growing. And so as that happens, I learn things about myself, or realize, how I was saying that, or like some things are shifting a little bit and I need to kind of come back into alignment and get clarity again. And that happens with the women who are in my messenger masterminds too. They go through this process together, and then and they're learning the skills and the tools to notice those things, because they're not going to stay the same. So they may exit the program, and a lot of times people come in and they're like, I just really want clarity on what I'm showing up for, and how I'm talking about my work, and all these different things. And they get that clarity, but then they leave and they keep evolving. And so that clarity has to keep getting honed. It's like about learning the tools, learning the framework and the mindset, and how to look at things in that way, and how to keep clarifying and honing and noticing what's in alignment, what's kind of a little bit off for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love how you mentioned before that when you're trying to help someone hone in on their message, you'd say, well, what would you do a TED Talk about? That was literally not the TED Talk, but how I just got more clarity. And this episode will air a little bit later, so you guys will probably have already seen me starting to talk about more of this, but I'm writing a book. And so working with someone to write a book, they were like, well, what do you want to be known for in 5 years? What is that one thing that you want people to say, Krissy is your girl to go listen to, if that's what you want help and work in. And so it's like I've started my personal brand helping people with branding, and that includes messaging. And my private clients want to get into the digital space through online courses and masterminds. And so it's like I have all this knowledge. And so that's what I talk about doing. But then working with them, I've gotten so much clarity on with everyone that I work with, whether it's through a course or private coaching, everything that I speak on and have them do is intentional to decrease their time that they're working and increase their earnings or the time that they have for fun. And one of my mottos has always been work less, enjoy more. And that's always been a motto, but I wasn't really like my messaging wasn't really speaking on that. And now there's just so much clarity that, oh my gosh, that's my superpower, that everything that I do to help, people build their online businesses is working efficiently so that they can work less and enjoy and earn more. And so just even after, we're coming up on, a year of my course launching, my brand is evolving and my message is evolving and I'm feeling more aligned and I'm feeling more clear. So it's like, you can certainly start your business and make money and then find more clarity in your message and make more money, right? It's like this cool thing that, like you said, we're humans, we evolve. Like as we evolve, our businesses can evolve. So it doesn't, like where you are right now doesn't mean that's where you're going to be in 6 months. But I love to come back to, what would you want your TEDx to be on? What would you want your book to be about that could stand the test of time, and that you are known for that thing can help you get clarity on what direction you're going and the messaging that needs to happen behind it to get there. Right.
And then knowing that it's about taking that action to continually move forward, that oftentimes the clarity happens once you start talking about things, once you start taking action, and sitting around figuring it out in your head, means you might be sitting around for a while. And so yeah, I love that. And I love you adding like what would your book be? Because yeah, absolutely. And I wow, your journey. Yeah, I think there's like so much, it's like we're spiraling deeper. We're always spiraling deeper. And you've been doing this work and you've been really great at all these different elements of it. And you being able to like hone in, okay, now it's time for me to like really hone in on my true gifts here and focus on this and share around this. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So let's give the audience some more on, kind of your messaging tips, things that you think are really important to share with the audience right now to help them, get more clarity or get more confident, or, what do you think is important to focus on?
Okay. So the first thing that's coming to me when you ask that question is to recognize that whatever type of messenger, and I'll define messenger as someone who is showing up online using messaging. so someone who's a leader in the online space, you're a personal brand, if you're listening to this, I'm thinking of you as the messenger. And so that to recognize what your unique gifts and strengths are, and that you don't have to show up a different way than you are in order to be heard or in order to have a powerful message. That like everyone having a clear message is a great first start, but also you don't have to change. So one of the tools that I developed that in my experience and in what I've heard from people who've taken my messenger archetypes quiz has helped create some acceptance and I guess normalizing and yeah, recognition that, there's no one way you need to be as a messenger is my messenger archetypes. So there are 5 different messenger archetypes that I've kind of developed from all of the messenger masterminds I've led over the last several years, and the women who've come through, and the different, I guess, nuances of like where their message has kind of gotten blocked getting to their people, and then also like what their real strengths and superpowers are. Because a lot of times we think that when you're online and you're showing up as a personal brand and you're sharing what you have to say, that the only people who are successful or who grow a business or who scale are loud or are extroverted or are outspoken or disruptors or polished, or like there's so many different words we could put in here, right? That you should be a certain way in order to get heard online. And that was definitely the case for me. I thought that there was a certain way I needed to show up. I thought that when I got on video, I needed to like hype up my energy and be really bubbly. And then the part of me that was like a little bit softer and quieter, I used to kind of like be like, you can't be that way. You can't be successful and be that way. So let's, because I have both sides to me and they're all me. And so for a long time, I was kind of like shoving back that part of me being an entrepreneur and being online, because I was like, well, you need to be social, you need to be, seem extroverted. And so I think that like, there are so many ways we can be. Like I've had clients in my masterminds who the voice in their head told them you're not polished enough, because they were like really kind of raw and messy and just shared things like right off the cuff, and they thought they needed to be a little bit more formal with their language, and so there's so many different ways that this shows up for us. And so I can briefly go through the 5 archetypes if that would be helpful.
Yeah, okay. I can't wait to take the quiz. You know what I'm doing after we get off of here? I'm going to take the
So the first one is the expressive. And the expressive is the person who is so passionate about what they're sharing. They come at it with like so much to say. There's never a lack of perspective. But then like kind of the other side of that can be that there's so much they have to say that it's hard to pinpoint like what is the true message within that. Like, so it's hard for people to take away. But at the same time, like there's a superpower of passion. Mm-hmm. And then you have the sensitive soul, and the sensitive soul is the messenger who kind of maybe second guesses things and maybe hovers with their finger over publish for a really long time, and kind of like is like maybe gets a little perfectionist-y before putting things out into the world, and like has a lot of stuff that they never put out into the world, all the stuff written and it never goes out. But at the same time, they have this huge heart. And empathy is their superpower. And when they start to share, when they tap into like how much they care, suddenly they can share vulnerably and real, and people really connect with them. And then we have the tactician. And this is like the expert, the person who is like fantastic at like laying out all the steps to do something. Like it might be a nutritionist, or it might be a web designer. It could be a lot of different people, but like they're very like, okay, here's how you do this. Tutorials are their thing. But then like sometimes the like, how do I get my people to connect with me emotionally? How do I move them to action, move them to want to sign up for my thing, can be more challenging. Mm-hmm. And then you have the inspirer, and this is kind of the influencer, the person who everyone has on their vision boards, we look up to. But then there can be this handcuffing feeling sometimes where it's like, okay, I have to keep showing up this way, or else I might lose followers, or people won't buy from me unless I am this. And this could be high vibe. This could be perfect. This could be always like edgy. It could be whatever it is for that person, but there's something that kind of like can start to make it hard for them to show up authentically how they feel. Mm-hmm. And then we have the free spirit. I think that's the 5th. I think I said 5th. Yeah, I think I've already. Okay. So the final one is the free spirit, and the free spirit is the visionary. They're the one who kind of can see the world in a different way that it is now, and is pulling down all these different concepts. This might be a healer or a life coach or an artist. And then kind of the other side can be that it's hard to explain their work in a way that people really get, in a grounded way. There might be a lot of flowery or esoteric or abstract language because it's like we're hard to like define it. And so all these archetypes, they have the superpower as well as the part that like if we are one of these archetypes, we might notice the other side of it. We might notice kind of, I guess, the shadow side, because that's what we're in and we're experiencing as like the messiness of it, of like, it's not landing for people, or like, why don't people, why aren't they moving why don't they seem to connect with what I'm saying? Or, we experience it in those ways, but really the other side of things is that we have this superpower. And if we can notice which archetype we are, then we can kind of like claim that and recognize like, this is how I show up as a leader. And there's nothing wrong with any of this. There's like things I can do to clarify, but there's nothing wrong about my leadership style.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what, badass is the new black. That's the name of this. It's like, we're all badass in our own way. So if you can channel, your strengths and what your superpower is and use that to your advantage, that's great. And then I'm sure that you help people with that backside, right? That they're struggling with. Is my assumption, is that like in your programs and whatnot, to kind of help them channel how they can use what they're really good at and then get out of those things that are holding them back, or get better at connecting if that's their, being vulnerable, if that's what they're struggling with or their challenges. I'm excited to take it.
That is
as you were saying that, I'm like, I'm a little bit of, but I think I'm a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what the quiz is going to say.
And the quiz, and the Messenger Archetypes quiz will share where you're dominant, but know that we're all humans and none of us are one thing. So there might be like infusions of other archetypes within your archetype. Like for me, I identify as both the expressive and the sensitive soul. And which is also such an interesting thing to have, like how things work together in you was also a whole nother nuance.
Yeah. So cool. Awesome. Well, I'm sure everyone is going to go take that quiz. I think that's our freebie, and we don't need to get to the freebie yet. If there's still more juicy things that you want to share with anyone, I don't want to cut you off. I love talking about this. We started mentioning this at the very beginning, like talking about the importance of messaging and having a clear message in your brand and how that can impact your business. So if you don't have a clear message, then, let's talk about how it can affect your business. The things that I kind of thought of, and maybe you'll think of others, were you won't attract the right people, which means you won't increase your sales, because if the right people aren't coming in, then they're not going to buy what you have, right? You'll be working a lot without much reward. So as we can see, that your message and having clarity in your message can impact your business tremendously. I mean, talk about wasted time, right? In one aspect, although I will totally play devil's advocate to myself and say that nothing we do is completely wasted. There's always a lesson to learn from everything that we do. So if the lesson can at least be, that's the wrong way to do it, or I was doing it wrong and let's try it differently, at least you get that. But when your messaging is on point and it's clear, then like you said, you're attracting the right people, the people that want what you have to offer, whether it's a product or a service. They're willing to open their wallet for it, right? And so that way your business grows and you can make more of an impact. So we've touched on, how to get more clarity in your message. We've touched on some different messenger archetypes, and people are going to go take that quiz to find out. What would you recommend once they find out what they are? What would you say is the next step to help them kind of move towards clarity, besides go binge listen to your podcast?
Well, first I want to talk a little bit about what you shared around the power of messaging and like attracting the right people, because that's so spot on. That one of the things that I've noticed in my own business and work is that if I'm attracting people who are aligned with me, people who we have some shared values, there's certain people that I really enjoy working with. And there's certain people who maybe they don't have the same values, or there's something that they want that really isn't the way I work. And if they come in as clients, I am really drained. And so your messaging has that power to be able to convey what those values are, or who it is you work with, so that you are calling in those aligned clients and customers. And like, I think that's a huge part too of like your energy being, like protecting your energy, but also like using your energy for the things that really matter in your life and in the world. I've just noticed that one of the offsets of this is that when I enroll my messenger masterminds, like it's an intimate group. There's like 6 women, but there's always somehow the people who come in are always the right people. Like I it's like it's somehow there's a filter in my messaging that the people who are attracted to me, I'm not saying that there's not like difference and that there can't be, like that everyone is just like me, but more of like that they're attracted to a certain energy. They're attracted to like what they say is like my gentleness or groundedness or like working in a more impact-based way, like where relationships we're creating with our customers are more important than the sale at all costs, or like there's lots of things, right? Values that we can kind of infuse into our messaging that bring the right people in. And even in so as a copywriter, I write websites for people, and even within the websites that I'm writing, that is weaving through it. So in your own website, like weaving that through it, even now I have a values page as part of it. And so on the values page, you can actually like put, what are all the things that you show up for in your business? And it's like another nuance of like, how am I attracting the right people into my space? So I felt like sharing that, but I can also share the first step once you know your archetype.
Yeah, no. And I have like some thoughts on that. I mean, you talked before about really, and you didn't use the words lean in, but I'll use the words lean into who you are. And, you hear the word authenticity or showing up authentic as your true authentic self. You hear that all the time. But I learned that when I started showing up as my true authentic self, which was a little bit messy, a little bit scattered, really bad at grammar and spelling. And like my audience knows this about me because I lean into it. I don't have to put on this face. I don't have to pretend that I'm perfect, which means I'm attracting people that are okay with my flaws, right? And that makes me feel more comfortable. So if you can lean into who you really are and are showing up in that capacity, and that will transform into your message, then you will be attracting your tribe. So I love that you touch on that. I want to encourage people to kind of rethink about that and maybe have to play this back, to not be afraid to show up as yourself. Yeah, it's going to push people away that aren't interested in what you're all about. But that's the goal, is not to, attract the most amount of people than anyone else that love us, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to find the right people that want what you have to provide in your product or your service and make an impact on the world in the capacity that you want. And so, yeah, I want to stress again what you said, just being able to be yourself and finding your superpower, whether it's, that, I bet, you're introverted, and now you've shared that's, you want to help other introverts share. So I bet you attract introverts who feel like they couldn't be introverted before, and now they can have a successful business without trying to be someone else. And so you're making an impact on those people's lives. The other thing that I wrote down is your ideal client avatar. So you mentioned, the language that you're using and how you end up with these people in your mastermind that seem perfect. Is my guess is that you have a very clear identity of your ideal client avatar. And I've worked with this with clients where we start creating this profile of their perfect customer, and they start putting down like what they've seen in some of their customers or what people tend to be. And I'm like, no. We are writing the perfect person. Like they're excited and they're open to new ideas, and they're like all those characteristics and features of what this ideal person is, because we're going to create our messaging and speak to that person. And when we start speaking to that person, we're going to start drawing in the people that are like that. Right. So if you want someone who's willing to invest in themselves, because you teach on relationships, and you want them to invest in that, you don't want to be using words that, say like, are you scared of investing? Like, no, you're going to attract the people that are scared of investing in themselves. You want to say things like, are you ready to take it to the next level? You're excited to explore this next chapter in this journey, right? Like the messaging matters and how you say it to attract the right people. So you are proven, like your mastermind is proven that you're using the right messaging to get the right people. So go binge listen to Adria's podcast because she knows what she's talking about clearly on that. Do you do work with, like in your mastermind, is like the ideal client avatar something that you work with a lot in there?
Yes, absolutely. So in my mastermind, we start by looking at your message. So like what we've been talking about here at the beginning of like, what's the TED Talk, what's the book, like what is that thing you're showing up for, your stake in the ground. And then after that, we go into your people, like who are these people? And on that deeper level of being able to kind of channel what's going on in their head and stepping into their shoes. And I think that, like, I love what you said about not choosing like the people who have been showing up, unless the people who've been showing up are like your people and you're like, yes, more of this. But like recognizing like, who is it that you really care about helping? Like what are the things you really care about, and who are the people that you would just want to move through this, that you want to support, that you want to champion, that you want to, whatever it is, the work that you do, like who are those people, and like how can you step into seeing the world through their eyes, and how can you channel that into your messaging? Because that's you're absolutely right. Like that is what I do in my own messaging, and that's what I support my clients in doing. And that is the part that, like, if you can make your people feel seen and then also let them see you, like that's a relationship you're building. And that has a lot of depth. And that's not just like, I work with women who are in this age bracket, who are that this is depth. This is like relationship, intimacy, connection. And those are really powerful things. Those are powerful things for moving people to take the next step, whether that is to work with you, whether that is to sign up for whatever it is. Like there's trust, there's connection, and those are business building things as well as like leadership building things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're listening and you're looking at your audience now and you're realizing that you are attracting a specific type of person, but it's not the person that you really want to be attracting, that is a clear indication that something is going on with your messaging, causing you to attract that specific kind of person. And if you don't want it to be that person, then you have to start diving in and figuring out what's the message I'm putting out there? What's the vibe I'm putting out there to draw on this person? What do I really want it to be? And how do I make that shift? Absolutely. Awesome. Well, this has been great. I know you have a freebie. We've talked about it a little bit. The quiz, why don't you let everyone know where they can go to find that?
So you can go over to messengerquiz.com to take the quiz. It's super fast. I think it has like maybe 5 or 6 questions, but also pretty accurate. And then once you take that quiz, you will get some emails and follow-up sequences that help you kind of like dive deeper into your archetype and give you some first steps and some personalized choices of podcast episodes you can listen to go deeper in that as well.
Perfect. Awesome. And then the next time, this mastermind is happening, I think it's like open enrollment and then closed enrollment. So how can they connect with you to make sure that they get on that list so they don't miss the next one?
Yeah. So you can go to messengermastermind.com. That has the details about it. That has, that has all the things. I run it right now. I'm running it twice a year. The next round, I don't know when this episode's going live, but the next round should be starting in April 2021 this year.
Perfect. That'll be perfect timing.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And yeah, and you can find out information there, and you can always also reach out to me. You can email me, adriadecorte.com, Instagram message me. My handle is Adria DeCorte, ADriaDeCorte. Yeah, I'm kind of always enrolling for what the next round is. Sometimes people sign up many months out knowing that they're putting that moment in the ground of like, okay, I'm, once you start to make that, set that intention, lots of things shift already. So.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So by the time you guys are listening to this, sounds like some exciting things will be happening to get you guys prepared for that next mastermind challenge. So hop over to her website and make sure you are on the list. Do you have a few minutes to play a quick game that I like to play?
Sure.
Okay, I didn't tell Adria about this. Go ahead.
And also, I was going to say, also, I don't know if we said the name of my podcast, but it's called Unforgettable. It's on all the podcast apps. So if you want to go straight and like listen to episodes, binge on things, you are welcome to.
Perfect. Everything's going to be in the show notes, you guys. So if you need links, we'll have it all there and you can get to that. So the quick game before we go is like a rapid fire or this or that, just to get to know you a little bit more. So I'm going to give you two things and you're just going to tell me like right away, which one is more you. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Books or podcasts?
Oh, shoot. Books right now.
Books right now?
In the past podcast, books at this exact moment.
Okay. Yes. I didn't say it was going to be an easy thing. I was just got to be quick.
Like both.
Okay. So books right now, audio books, or do you actually pick up the book and read it?
I've been doing both. I have like all these audiobooks, but I've had less time like driving or walking on my own to listen to things, which is probably why podcasts aren't my first thing at the moment. So I've been doing a little bit of like book reading over by the fire this winter.
Okay, perfect. So when my book's out, I'll send you a copy.
Yes.
All right. Heels or flats?
Flats.
Okay. Phone call or text message to give or receive?
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like what you're getting to know about me is that I'm a little bit like slow and maybe slightly indecisive and slow and intentional with my answers. Phone calls to be on, and most of the time text messages to receive.
Okay. Movies or TV series if you're going to veg in front of the TV?
TV series.
All right. Pajamas or real clothes on the daily?
Real clothes.
You're not like a real clothes on the top, pajamas on the bottom kind of
girl?
Girl?
Right. Real clothes that feel really good to be in, but I also feel like super nice in my skin.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Are you a chocolate lover?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dark chocolate.
Milk. Okay. I was going to say milk chocolate, white chocolate, or dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. Okay. Are you an animal lover?
Yes, I have a Doberman. I'm a dog person. Well, I also love cats, but yeah, definitely a dog.
Okay.
person.
So dogs over cats. All right. And I already know this about you. So this is a little bit like less exciting for the last question, but a big party or small gathering?
Yeah, I would say small gathering, intimate. Yep.
Okay. That's what I would have pegged for you. So awesome. Well, thank you, Adria, for being here and sharing so much of your message with us. I'm excited for everyone to get to follow and get to know you more, and let you help them get more clarity on their message. So thank you again for taking the time and sharing with all of us. And you guys go find Adria through the show notes, through all of the links, everywhere and everywhere. You guys, until next time, remember to channel your inner badass and take imperfect action every single day. Until next time, remember, done is better than perfect, my friend, and to channel your inner badass and take imperfect action every single day.